I think they're more vulnerable than they have been before for all the reasons everybody knows. I mean, their bench is not as good as it's been in years past. Steph Curry is injured. We don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back. But one thing I'd remind people about the Warriors is that in recent years, singular year, last year, they breezed through the Western Conference playoffs. But this is not a team that has not faced adversity before. Remember 2015, they're down 2-1 to the Memphis Grizzlies. Didn't look all that good. 2016, trailing Oklahoma City 3-1 in the conference finals. They've battled through that. They battled through that problem. They have fought through some tough situations, and I still think that if they can just get Steph back.
I think most people would call those high-class problems.
High-class problems. You're right. Look, they're.
I mean, Memphis, the series was just getting started. Mm-hmm. All right?
But Memphis in 2015 was
now that OKC, the OKC thing, like that was real. Like they wouldn't be the team they are now, that OKC thing. So I do understand that, yes, they have been. People don't give them credit for not going through anything.
Go ahead.
No, look,
let you finish.
The other part of it is that as poorly as they played in the totality of the season compared to others, their bench is starting to play a little bit better. You're getting production out of Jordan Bell. Andre Iguodala hasn't played a lot in the second half of the season, but in the first half before the All-Star break, he was shooting something like 25% from three-point range. Since then, he's in the high 40s. So maybe he's starting to get some of his mojo back. Look, it's all predicated on Steph. We know that. Mm-hmm. But if he's healthy by the second round, this is still the team to beat in the Western Conference.
Well, here's the question I have for you, because this is something where there's been a bit of a point of contention. Let's say, who do you think is their worst possible matchup in the first round?
Oklahoma City.
Okay.
Oklahoma City.
Do you think they could be beaten in the first round? If they get Oklahoma City, we know, let's assume Steve Kerr wasn't lying to us, Steph is not playing in that series. Do you think Oklahoma City could beat them?
If it's Oklahoma City, yes, I think Oklahoma City could.
How come?
Could. Well, look, the game last night, I thought it was an impressive win for Golden State. Look, they got contributions from guys you wouldn't ordinarily expect. But in that game, Paul George and Carmelo Anthony were basically in the crapper. Like, that was not a good performance by the other two stars. You can't expect that. You can't count on that from Oklahoma City in the postseason.
Why? When was the last time the two of them actually gave you something?
Well, they have for a lot
at least one of the two. I think he's saying you can't count on both of them being that bad.
Pretty lengthy stretch.
That's fair, Jenna.
It has. And look, Carmelo Anthony, his game has ebbed and flowed all season long. But I do believe in Paul George in the postseason, just like I believe in Russ. I think Russ's biggest question is going to be, can he, when his teammates aren't playing good basketball, can he continue to share the ball with them? Because we've seen the numbers, right? Under 14 shots, their record's through the roof. Over 14 shots, it's not so good. So can he trust them? But that's the worst possible matchup. No Steph Curry. You're using maybe Quinn Cook on Russell Westbrook in the playoffs. That's a tough matchup.
So there's an interesting thing, because as people, I think, look at me as something of a Warriors critic, some would even say a Warriors hater. I don't really, I probably, the latter, the former is accurate. The latter I don't think is fair. But I would be shocked if they face a single elimination game in the first round, no matter who they play. Could Oklahoma City take them 6? Maybe. I think that they have better coaching than anyone they'd play in the first round. I think they have a better cohesive unit, even without Steph than anyone they play in the first round. The home court advantage is a real thing. Oracle in the postseason, even though this year they haven't been as good at home. But the one thing that I do think is interesting, and you saw it a bit last night after Durant had the monster first half and then was quieted somewhat in the second half. Kevin Durant said something really interesting in this podcast with Bill Simmons, the two-part series from last week. They were comparing, contrasting his game to LeBron. And they were talking about LeBron's longevity. And KD said it, and he was complimenting. He wasn't taking a shot at all. He's like, listen, LeBron works a lot on his body. He's like, I would rather work on shot making. He said, I'd rather work on my game. He's like, I spend my time, I want to be able to make a shot from anywhere on the court. LeBron's in there working on his body. And that, by the way, you can see the difference between them. What that does cause is, at times, not as easy bucket getting as you can see with other guys. Like KD he is one of the best shot makers in NBA history. But if his shot is just a little off, what he can't do is what we've seen LeBron make a career of doing. My shot's off, guess what? I'm bigger, stronger, I'm going to get to the rim. So if I were to try to create a scenario where the Warriors don't get out of the first round, it would have to be because KD goes cold. Like, if KD's playing the way I know he can play, I just think with Clay and Draymond and the rest of the cast, they're so much better than everybody else.
One thing there's two things from last night's game that I really believe are important. We know there's a mismatch if they have to play OKC at the point guard with Russ. but we saw Klay have to guard Russ. Now, for me, I believe if they were to make it to the Western Conference Finals, it would be really taxing on Klay because that first series, he's got the toughest matchup in guarding Westbrook. So I believe that will have an effect on the team.
And in the second series, by the way, he'd probably be guarding Lillard because they're not going to ask Steph, especially coming off an injury, to guard Lillard.
Right. So I believe that this will be their toughest run in trying to win a championship. But I saw Steve Kerr start to make an adjustment, which kind of takes me out of the vulnerable state where KD and Draymond started bringing the ball up the court. They start running their offense through Draymond and through KD. And you could see the overall continuity. You could see the passing come back. You could see kind of when they benched who was starting before Draymond? Before the team.
David Lee, years ago. When David Lee,
you could start to see him playing a style like when they switched to Draymond and put him in more of a passing, more aggressive role. So for me, I don't believe because of the time they've been able to spend and with Draymond running some of the offense and KD getting used to bringing the ball up the court and initiating the offense, I believe that will pay dividends for them as we go into the playoffs.
As much as look, the talent we understand with Oklahoma City, but one thing we talk about with the Houston Rockets and their matchup with Golden State is the hunger that Houston has right now, the belief that this is their opportunity. Oklahoma City's got hunger and they've got hatred for Golden State, particularly Russell Westbrook, who still carries this personal grudge against them. Don't underestimate how far that might be able to take you in a first-round series where the talent level has been evened a little bit in the absence of Steph Curry.
All that being said, though, how far do you think the Warriors go?
I think they win the championship. I think Steph is back by the second round. I still think they're better than Houston, and I don't think anybody in the East can touch them. I mean, look, he'd fit everywhere. It comes down to two things. One, does San Antonio believe that over the course of a season that this is irreconcilable, that Greg Popovich and R.C. Buford and the winningest franchise in professional sports over the last 20 years can't figure it out with a player that seemingly just loves to play? If they do want to deal him, though, look, for a lot of the reasons Anthony Davis made sense in Boston, Kawhi Leonard makes sense in Boston. Because if you're the Spurs, think about what the Spurs would do if they were dealing Kawhi Leonard. Look, Marcus Aldridge is 32 years old. He's got a guaranteed contract, fully guaranteed, through the end of next season, the last season of his deal, only partially guaranteed at $7 million per year. If you're the Spurs, you know Ginobili's gone and Parker's done, and you got a bunch of G Leaguers around these guys anyway. Don't you start thinking about rebooting the whole thing? And if you do, what team out there can offer the assets that Boston can? I've watched a lot of Jason Tatum over the course of this year. Jason Tatum is a transcendent offensive talent. Jason Tatum, at some point in his career, is going to average 25-plus points per game. He's that good on the offensive end of the floor. If Boston builds a package around Jason Tatum, that might be the best deal San Antonio could hope to get.
And if you're Boston, I know Celtics fans think that all their guys are untouchable, that it's going to be a Terry Rozier.
Terry Rozier with Shane Larkin thrown in. But
listen,
maybe we'll give you Kadeem Allen.
If you get a commitment from Kawhi that he's going to sign an extension, you pick the player on my roster you want. Like, if you want Jason Tatum, you can have him. Now, if you don't know if Kawhi is going to sign, and then maybe I tick it down a notch.
That won't scare them. I'll tell you, that won't scare them, though, because they were willing to go get Paul George without a commitment from Paul George. They firmly believe in Boston, right or wrong, that if they get a guy into that system and they get a guy playing for Brad Stevens, who I think is the coach of the year this year, that they can convince that guy to stay, plus all the money.
Yeah, I believe Kawhi. I believe he's played his last game in San Antonio. I believe that Boston will be one of the – there will be a lot of teams going after him, but the realistic, Boston is real. It's on the table. The Lakers will be real. And also, some kind of way, by hook or crook, the Knicks would like to get in the Kawhi. And Kawhi's camp, there might be a contingent within that camp that would like to see him in New York. So I don't believe he will be in San Antonio. I do believe that they will come to an agreement. Boston is the most dangerous team. But also, let's not forget, Boston, I believe Kawhi is their second choice. Their first choice is Anthony Davis. The Boston Celtics are trying to add another piece that they can get a window. You and I talked about a 5 to 7 year window where they can compete for championships. Kawhi and Anthony Davis, I believe, are on the table for your guy, Danny Ainge. All those picks you've been stockpiling, now is the time.
I agree with you. They'd love to get their hands on Anthony Davis, but I think there's a recognition in Boston that Anthony Davis is probably off the table.
Oh, look, finally they realize realize that he was never on the table. For something to be off the table, it has to ever be on the table.
Okay.
The only reason Anthony Davis was ever discussed was because people in Boston were like, who is the best young player in the league? Anthony Davis, we want him. Well, obviously, we'll get him.
That's not the only reason. You're like a wind-up toy over there.
I mean,
that's not the only reason.
Hey, Mannix, a broken clock is right twice a day. Now, he was already right about the Cavs, so this might be the broken clock twice.
This isn't made up out of anywhere either. Boston continuously has checked in with New Orleans about this, and the reason they do that and the reason they believed it was possible is because the Pelicans stink, and they have stunk over the last couple of years. What's changed this year is that Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins played well together. More likely than not, DeMarcus Cousins gets a max-level contract from the Pelicans, and they bring this band back together. Kawhi is the one that actually might be available.
Also, sidebar. The Pelicans owner, Tom Vincent, did die. His wife took over the team. So for them making a move like that, I believe is less likely for someone who didn't have a lot of experience in sports to trade their best player.
And listen, I mean, when you say they checked in, there are a lot of guys that tweet to Beyonce. Doesn't mean them going on a date with her is on the table. They're just throwing it out there. Like, Anthony Davis was never, with this many years left on his deal, in my eyes, was never going to be traded. Like, you don't trade top 5 players in the league prior to they are on an expiring contract. That is the interesting thing about Kawhi.
Jimmy Butler got traded. Wasn't a top 5 player, but Jimmy Butler's an elite two-way player with 2 years left of his contract because that's when you can maximize value.
Yes, you see guys in the Jimmy Butler tier traded quite often with a couple years left on their deal, the 10 to 20 tier. But guys that we talk about going into a year as MVP favorites are not on the table. But I'm happy for Boston because they have accumulated these assets. And they have been, and I had been hearing Anthony Davis and think, well, that's crazy talk. But Kawhi's a real thing now. And one of the reasons why doing it the way Danny Ainge has done it, the way Daryl Morey was doing it pre-James Harden, is sometimes guys you never thought would be on the table are there. James Harden's all of a sudden there, you go get him. Kawhi Leonard, nobody thought a year ago Kawhi Leonard could be available. No team is better positioned to get him. I think Cece's right, that as far as, like, when we talk about Kawhi's unhappiness with his shoe contract, the market, New York or L.A. are probably his top choice.
You sit here now, though, and you say, like, look, they was never on the table, Anthony Davis. 2 years from now, will the Pelicans regret maybe not going out and trying to get a Tatum, Brown, Al Horford, plus that, Lakers
man, I'm so excited.
No, forget it's money. It's money. It's just the money of it. It's Tatum Brown.
Okay.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.